Hey everybody, welcome to Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by his book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal, available at Amazon.com or on this awesome website, if you can see it on the wall behind him, Testosteronology. That is testosteronology.com. That is a new branch of medicine specifically for men. Dr. Thomas O'Connor is the first testosteronologist, but he is training future testosteronologists so he can continue and spread that good work to the men around the world who desperately need those services. Please welcome, from somewhere in Connecticut, Dr. Thomas O'Connor.
Underground in Connecticut. Underground. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, if I said Hartford, most people watching this don't even know what Hartford is anyway. So
True.
So today's video is, I steal all your videos, as you know. Well, I have to pick the best ones, and I think this is one I really wanted to get into. You did one that was in response to the Joe Rogan Experience podcast with Ronnie Coleman, which did huge numbers. Joe Rogan is the #1 podcaster in the world. That particular video has almost 3 million views on YouTube right now. And he made a short clip where Ronnie was just talking about steroids. It was a 10-minute clip, and that has almost 3 million views. So wow. People were very interested in it. You brought up a lot of points in your video that you did on your channel, Anabolic Doc. And I watched your video, and I was thinking, I got to talk to Thomas about some of this stuff too, because, you know, I love Ronnie. I have all the respect in the world, but some of the points he made, you challenged, and I want to challenge a couple more. And again, it's not to try to say, you know, Ronnie's a liar, Ronnie's this. Of course not. No, it's just things that I'd like to clarify, because the people out there who watch our shows, particularly my audience, who's more of a meathead audience, they were probably listening to Ronnie and going, yeah, I don't know. Come on, Ronnie. So the first thing, so Joe got into the steroid issue with Ronnie. He asked him, what kind of steroids did you use? So Ronnie replied, the basics, tests, D-ball, which GH. But here's where things got interesting to me. He said they were all prescribed by a doctor, all the steroids he used. First of all, I want to ask you, as a medical professional, I don't know about ethically, but legally, which steroids could you even prescribe if you really wanted to somebody like a Ronnie Coleman?
So we got to look at the time frames. So Ronnie's talking about back in the day. Yeah. So look at Ronnie, and Ronnie, I don't know, was drug-free until 30 or whatever he said. I'm not going to get that's for you to get into.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
So Ronnie's my exact age, so I could just look at my past. So because he's a few months older than me, good brotherhood, right? 1964 guys. So he's 56. I'll be 56 in October. So Ronnie says he was prescribed testosterone and steroids from doctors. Well, he was drug-free all the way into the 90s. In the 90s, it became illegal. So there's some controversy on that. What steroids are prescribed? And someone commented on the video, Doc. He was kind of like, oh, Doc, you said that he was prescribed by doctors, and certainly there were back then, some of them. And like I agree that equipoise, I would never agree to that. Equipoise is a horse steroid. So veterinarian steroids, trend. Yeah. So parabolan, I think never was a real drug. Maybe in France. Okay. Right. So testosterone is prescribed then and now, definitely. Esters, cypionate, enanthate. No Sustanon 250 because we never had it in the country. Right. Cypionate, enanthate, propionate, right? We didn't have undeconate back then. So basic Sustanon was underground if he used it. So it was the testosterone esters. Anavar, still to this day, the anti-aging guys give it, so Anavar. Decadurobalin for the shoulder pain, for your shoulder pain. So
that's legit. Yeah.
So I don't prescribe. So ethically, I only prescribe testosterone for men that need it, because everyone comes to me and they have anabolic steroid induced hypogonadism. They're super shut down. They're on test for years. So I give them what I feel is comfortable, and we agree. And then I make sure they don't have a heart attack. And their sex is great. Okay, that's a hard job. That's not easy. Seems easy, but it's not. So testosterone, Ron, Anavar, Decadurobalin. There's no Winstrol. I guess you could do Winstrol. I think in compounding pharmacies a few years ago, they were compounding Winstrol troches, Winstrol lollipops.
Oh boy, I want some of those. Shit.
Not D-ball, right? Not Tren, not Equipoise. Anadrol 50, not Anadrol 50, but maybe Anadrol 50 in the 80s into the 90s. What else, Ron? What else?
Okay, so he said growth hormone. You know, I mean, I'm
No,
thinking this was his doctor, and I'm not going to try to figure out what doctor was this that did. It was probably some anti-aging type of doctor in Florida, Arizona, Palm Springs, California, and Texas. Yeah, I mean, there certainly are doctors out there, and I've seen the menus. You know, they send you a menu. You can it's like a drug deal. You can pick and choose whatever you want.
Yeah.
And but there are a lot of drugs used by bodybuilders at that level. Things like the halotestin, the Masteron, you know, diet things that a doctor I don't think could even prescribe if he wanted.
No. So Ronnie, got to call him out, Ronnie. A lot of respect for you, Ronnie. You are the king, but you're not going to slip by, at least us, that docs were prescribing D-ball, equipoise, veterinary drug. You know, so and halotestin. There's no way. Now, did some crazy doctor, some shaky doctor, shady, even today, give compounded versions of some of this? Maybe, but in everything I use, Ron, comes out of Rite Aid, CVS, and I try to get the insurance to pay for it even, because if your insurance can cover it, it's dirt cheap though. It's $40 for a 10cc vial of testosterone, Ron. Dirt cheap.
I can't get a bottle of test for $40.
It's good RX. I mean, it's dirt cheap. It's Rite Aid, Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, and insurance sometimes even pays for it. It's testosterone. It's a drug. It's a medical need. So there's no way that anything beyond those drugs were given by doctors. In the 80s, it was cowboy land. In the 70s, Arnold said he was getting, I guess, real D-ball, which is true, in the 70s into the 80s. But Ronnie, you were drug-free into the 90s. And by then, there's no way a legitimate primary care doctor like me was giving D-ball. Maybe testosterone, but they weren't giving more than 100 milligrams a week, maybe 200.
Yeah. I mean, even if I went to an anti-aging place, I don't know if they have limits, like Costco has a limit on how much chicken you can buy now, because I don't know if they have limits where I could say, well, I need 5 or 6 bottles of test every month. I don't know if they would give that to me if I.
There are limits. This is a controlled drug, Ron. This is a controlled drug. There are extreme limits on this. You can't refill it early, just like it's a controlled drug like OxyContin and all these crazy narcotics, right? You can't do it too. Hey, my dog ate it. It broke on the ground. My dog, it's in the toilet. We checked in his poop. We're trying. Oh, here's the vial. It came out of the dog's. I've seen everything.
Yeah,
I've seen everything.
So and I don't blame Ronnie for this, and it's Joe Rogan put him on the spot, and that's kind of his job, right? He has to ask the hard questions, or else who's going to want to watch his podcast if it's all softball questions? So,
correct.
Ronnie said what he had to say, and let's move on.
Yeah.
The one thing that you pointed out that I wanted to even emphasize more was people assume that Ronnie used these horrific amounts of drugs because they look at the way he was built. They see his training videos. They see this guy that was 300 pounds of cartoonish muscle, and he's deadlifting 800, and he's squatting 800, and he's pushing up 5 plates on the bench for reps every time he trained, and 200-pound dumbbells. And they think, well, this guy must have been on 3 grams of test a week and 2 grams of tren, and this, in their head they have these ideas that it was some crazy cycle. But he said in the video, his heart, his liver, his kidneys are all in good shape at this age. We know he's had health problems related to structural problems from all the training, his spine and everything, but internally he seems to be in pretty good shape. And you said for people that call him a liar, the proof is in the pudding that he's had 11 or 12 surgeries. And what did you say about how you're screened for surgery? What kind of health, what kind of markers do they look for?
So the most important part, Ron, you always nail it. The most important part of that video, my recap of that video, is this. And it's not giving Ronnie a blessing that steroid use is free and he's great. He did some protective mechanisms. Ronnie Coleman is super, super lucky, and not lucky, not with his, and he's humble though. So he is a decent guy though. He's very, you got to give him that. Yeah. That's everyone else I've seen in the world. They're not humble when they crash and burn. It just is true. Ronnie's back is broken. Okay. lightweight and all that stuff and everything he did, and he wanted to do more reps. That's just the cost of doing business. So here he is. But his organs are otherwise healthy. I don't know Ronnie personally. I've met him a couple of times. I don't know him. He's certainly not a patient in no respect at all. You would never, ever be able to undergo all those surgeries for hours where he's under anesthesia for multiple hours, 3 hours, 5 hours. You die.
I've talked to him. The longest he was under was 12 hours.
So listen to this. I'm a physician. I'm an internal medicine doctor. I'm an ex-primary care doctor. I've done thousands of pre-op physicals. Pre-operative physical. I'm asked by the anesthesia team and the surgical team across the country when my patients I used to, Dr. O'Connor, this is your patient. Is he safe enough to undergo anesthesia and surgery? Sometimes I have to ask cardiologists to help me. Sometimes I have to ask nephrologists to help me. You don't need rheumatologists. You don't need foot doctors. You don't need plastic surgeons. Cardiology doctors are the main ones, and GI doctors if you have liver disease, kidney doctors. This is a great point. There's no question that Ronnie to this day has otherwise, I got to be careful how I phrase it, is healthy enough and functional with his heart and his kidneys. Now, with that said, I don't know Ronnie. I like Ronnie. Does he have heart disease to what degree, or kidney disease to what degree? I don't know. He must. He has to. His left ventricle, I would be gambling in Vegas to say, is it perfectly normal and not enlarged and not somewhat dysfunctional after all the weight and all the okay, and then the only way to prove it is let's get it out. Let's get an echocardiogram. He's not going to do that. It's America. I don't want to get sued, and I don't want to hurt the guy. He's a great guy. Is his kidney function? Let's look at his creatinine clearance. Let me see his kidney function. Who knows? Maybe he's got chronic kidney disease. What I'm saying is, after all that and not having dialysis or being able to undergo so many surgeries, who goes under all those surgeries? Not many people in the world. And the rate limiting step is going to be if you have bypass surgery or stents or heart disease, not to mention heart failure, you ain't going under all those surgeries. It's not going to happen. You're done. They're not going to take the risk.
So very safe to assume his heart, his kidneys, his liver, we don't know that they're in perfect condition, which would be ridiculous anyway. There's got to be some level of damage, but healthy enough.
Healthy enough. Now, but Dr. O'Connor, how can it be this 28-year-old or 35? I have waiting list of guys coming in with heart disease and kidney disease right now, waiting list. And I look at those, I say, Doc, what happened to me? I'm only 42. I didn't do anything like this. I didn't do anything. There's one simple answer: luck.
Luck, yeah.
Genetics. Because Ronnie lifted a lot, took a lot of drugs, took a lot of protein. Come on, guys. The guy's made of like carbonite, Teflon. I mean, he basically, and his back broke. Jesus Christ. I mean, come
carbonite.
On. I don't know. I'm just trying to so Ronnie Coleman, pro bodybuilder. Let me get this point home. Pro bodybuilders, powerlifters, and strongmen that do it into their 30s or maybe even longer. There's one thing on their side that they're still going. What is it? Luck.
I was gonna say luck. Yes.
Luck.
I mean, that's my deal.
They're lucky. They're lucky that their body is able to withstand that kind of steroid use. Let's not sugarcoat this. But they come to me with different degrees of health issues, and that's just keep my mouth shut. That's just what it is. So it's going to be different degrees, but will they live into their 60s and 70s and there's no free lunch. So that's why I'm always going to back up and say, if you really, really don't care about living to an old man, you're like a crazy cowboy. I can't say go for it, but how much risk do you want to take? That's why I block when guys come in early. I block all these risks 24/7. I can get them off steroids. A lot of guys come to me, they're on steroids, and I just show them the way. I look at your labs, look at this, look at the studies. I do cardiac studies, renal studies, cardiac, renal doctors all over the world now. And I show them what state they're in and what they may be going. And then in the end, I could always offer them weaning testosterone doses. And then, but I'm a career wrecker, and that's why all your buddies, all your top pro athletes think I'm a complete buffoon. They think I'm not a buffoon. They think I'm an arrogant. They don't go to me because I'm a career wrecker. So don't worry, guys. My business is great. I don't need those elite. Those guys are so. Come on, Ron. The level of those guys, they're so sick with body dysmorphia. They're destroying their bodies, and they're going to end up suffering, every single one. And Ronnie's back is broken from what he did. I mean, so, but it's the right. These people want to do that to themselves. I'm trying to keep young men off steroids, and guys like us that are our age have done some to try to soften the blows. That's it.
Right. Okay. So here's what I want to get into from something while I was watching your video and then I watched Ronnie's video. It clicked in my head because Ronnie said he was talking to Joe Rogan and he said Joe wanted to know, did you use crazy amounts of steroids? And Ronnie replied, no, I don't think I use more than say baseball players do. So he was saying his doses were moderate, which of course a lot of people would immediately scoff and say, yeah, right, Ronnie was on grams and grams and grams. So I know you have treated many pro bodybuilders, world's strongest man competitors, champion powerlifters, cream of the crop athletically, some of the biggest, strongest men that have walked this earth. Now, of course, I've never asked you to divulge names or anything, so don't worry. Okay. Confidentiality. But I know these people must have divulged to you, this is what I used or this is what I'm using, and they had no reason to lie to you. They're not going to downplay it. They would have been honest because you're their physician, and they come to you because they want to be honest and they want to be healthy and they want to live longer. So in your experience, have the amounts these people told you have been very, very extreme, or have they been more moderate than what most of us out here in the stands watching would believe?
So it's all relative. And let's talk about three types of athletes: powerlifters, bodybuilders, and strongmen, right? So let me break it down for you. So I've had them all, right? My most common pro athlete, strength steroid using athlete, is a powerlifter. Maybe because I was a powerlifter and it was a brotherhood, number one. And even the most famous powerlifters are really almost no ones in the streets. Kind of like wrestling, like high school and college wrestling. You're NCAA Division I champ. You walk into a store, no one knows you. But if you're NCAA top football guy at Alabama, okay. So I'm glad you're laughing because it's just like no one cares. Right. So bodybuilders versus the other powerlifting guys. Okay, bodybuilders that I've taken care of. And in the beginning of being the Anabolic doc 12 years ago, I took care of a lot of the big guys back then. All of them came because they were like, I'm the new guy, I'm the Anabolic doc, I'm going to be, carrying it, I'm going to have some magic wand. So they all came, and I still get consults from all over the world from these guys they want to just run something by me, and I appreciate that. And these guys, so what do they take, Ron? Bodybuilders are the worst guys. Come on. Bodybuilders and Ronnie, you took a lot of tren. You did a lot of tren. Tren, but how much versus this guy over here? But it's going to be the bodybuilder, a base gram of test. Come on, Ron. You don't need much more of that. And then upward of about a gram of tren. Equipoise, come on, Ron. He doesn't want to live on D-ball and Anadrol because he's going to be puffy, even though the guy's genetics, his face is always carved like chisel, because that guy could probably have 20 cheeseburgers and he's never going to get genetics. Yeah. Okay. So, and guys, these are genetic. So bodybuilders, I just tap out. Like they do a lot of drugs. Let's go to, here's what you want to hear. Top pro powerlifters and top pro strongmen. Yeah. No names mentioned. So these guys are so gifted. This is the truth. And Ronnie's a powerlifter. Remember, Ronnie started as a powerlifter. Yeah. That's why Ronnie's moons lined up, because he was a powerlifter and he was able to just take that weight and he grew from it and he was steroid responsive, right? So you and I can't get any of that. Like if your receptors max out, he was able to just put more and more on the plates. More plates, more dates, more plates, more food, more protein, and he just grew and grew, and the steroids were required. You and I know that. Powerlifters, some of the top powerlifters, here's what they do. Here's what they do. They'll go up to about a gram, maybe 750 to a gram, maybe 1200. They don't do anymore. They don't do, but they like Tren. Okay, they'll do Tren because Tren with test makes you strong. They like to add in A-bombs, Anadrol. They don't take too much. If they take too much, it reminds me of some of the pro strongmen 10 years ago that trusted me and came into my life from America and all over Europe. They trusted me because one would get the other guy and come in, and it was amazing. They did Anadrol, but they took so much. If they take more than 2 or 3, or what, they would get nauseous, and they couldn't eat all their food they need to eat when they're at the Arnold Classic. You know it's true. So no one does insulin because you can't. I told you already in the past. They can't. They did insulin. They couldn't hold on to the farmer's carry. So insulin didn't really work for them. They didn't need insulin. So great genetics, about a gram, maybe a gram and a half of base test, some Anadrol or D-ball. Definitely they like Tren. They love equipoise, maybe up to about a gram of that. And I'm done. I just answered your question. And a lot of growth. 10 IUs a day of growth.
Whew. Wow.
And
must have sponsor.
So a big strong man reminds me of, he would go to about 1,200 of test. 1,200 a test. He would take 2 Anadrol a day. He would take 8 to 12 IUs of growth and some equipoise. Boom.
I mean, these are guys, these strongmen, they're enormous human beings. They're
enormous genetically.
I mean, 300 pounds would be a very small strongman.
10,000 up to 10,000 calories a day.
Wow. So, you know, it is true that genetic elites, they don't need crazy, because these are the amounts that you're talking about. I know guys that do local shows that do that much or more. And, you know, some of these people on those doses barely look any bigger than like some natural people I've known. So it's not as closely related as people seem to think, that if you take more drugs, you're going to be bigger. So they look at these people like the world's strongest men and the top Olympia guys, and they figure, well, that guy must be on 10 times the amount as me because he's 10 times bigger. But it's just not the case. What else did I want to? Yeah, he also said he would take 3 months off from training after every Olympia, and he, you know, Joe Rogan pressed him on this. Were you on TRT? Did you? And Ronnie was very adamant. He said, nope, cold turkey, and he felt fine. Which, he's the one human being that doesn't have anabolic steroid-induced hypogonadism.
So, another respectful call out to you, Ronnie. I think, you know, he was, you know, Joe put him against the wall for Joe Rogan, you know, put him, and then Ronnie said he bounced back. He said, bounce back. I don't know. You could see the comments on my video. Doc, please. You know, the hand like this. Doc, please. You know, the hand like that.
It's called a face palm.
The face palm. Doc, please. He cruised on testosterone like that. You know, and and again, we're not calling the guy a liar, but, you know, I've had guys come to me, no, I'm natural. I'm off everything. I'm doing great. I'm off. I'm taking a break. And then I take my history. Okay, so how much testosterone are you on? 400.
Yeah, I'm still natural. Yeah.
But that's for the libido. I'm still natty. I'm still natural. 200, 400. So back in this, let me tell you a secret. Back in the 70s, back the big powerlifters that I've really had. Dr. Squat, he's passed on, so I did an interview with him. He let me say anything. He was a great guy. First man to squat 1,000 pounds, narrow stance, deep stance with a little baby squat suit on.
Wasn't he like 49 or 50?
44 years old, I believe,
44.
45, and he was an Olympic lifter. He would stay on sussing on 250, 1 cc a week, and he'd maybe go up to 2, maybe 2 or 3. He didn't feel good on much more, and Anavar only up to about 60 milligrams a day. That's it. And he ate a lot of food. That's it. That's Anavar, and that's the God's honest truth. He smoked cigarettes. You know, he was in the World Trade Center. I was down there once, way back, I don't know, back in the 90s, you know, before it went down. And he was down there. Someone told me he was down there, and I remember there was some powerlifter meet going on, and he was smoking cigarettes, drinking. He was wild, man. He was
the first man to squat 1,000? Or was it 900?
Maybe the first, and he says maybe the second. He was one of the first men in the world to legitimately squat deep, walking out of the racks, filmed in a competition, 1,000 pounds. He did it. I believe he was 242.
I was going to say he wasn't. You know, these guys setting the records now, they're all north of 300 pounds.
Yeah.
They're much bigger human beings. So that's very a 242 power lifter. Wow.
Yeah, and he had a marathon squat suit on. Again, this is the detail. I'm a power lifter, so I know these history. I know this guy. I was his doctor for many years. He was a sweetheart. He died, from prostate cancer in the end. He's a great guy, and he really didn't do that much steroids. So strong, but if you're living on testosterone, I've learned you can get really strong when you're genetically gifted and you're training regularly and eating great and everything's tight. You don't need much. A guy like Ronnie, if he stayed on like sussing on 250 a week and he blasted up to like 750 and did just a little bit of extra steroids, he still would have been very close, I think, to what he looked like. I think it's true, Ron, but I think that hardness and that huge, massive, that's just, you got to do the trend and the equipoise and all that stuff, right, Ron? And growth. He was a big growth guy.
I mean, they all are. I don't want to single them out.
Wasn't Chad Nichols? Let's call out him. You see the comments? Didn't the comments say, Doc, face palms again? Chad Nichols was his trainer. That was his guru coach. Right. There's no way he's going to be on like little D-ball, a little bit of Anavar. There's no way.
Well, when we talk about coaches who have a reputation for being excessive, it's impossible to say if there's any veracity to that because people talk crap about everybody. And,
true.
I can't say that any, I've heard rumors about certain coaches are extreme and other coaches less so. And, that's it's all hearsay. You don't know for sure. The only people that know, I see cycles posted of pro bodybuilders from people that said, well, I know a friend of his, and this is from an email or a text message. It's all hearsay. We don't know for sure.
I agree.
But the last thing I want to do is talk about the fact that Ronnie claims he did not start using steroids till 1994 when he was 30 years old. So we know that he turned professional at the end of 1991, IFBB Worlds in Poland. He competed 92, 93, and some or all of the 94 season drug-free. So he claims. And so many people refuse to believe that's in any way possible. He turned pro, to give it some perspective. Ronnie was 5'11". He's definitely not 5'11 anymore. He was 5'11", and he turned pro something like 215 pounds, which is very, very small in comparison to what he eventually, heaviest he ever competed at the Olympia, I think it was the 2004 Olympia, was 296 or 297. So he put on something close, somewhere between 70 and 80 pounds of muscle between turning pro and the biggest he was as a Mr. Olympia champion. I would argue that this, and I want your input on this. I would argue that if somebody was already on steroids, that much of an increase would not be possible. If they had already used enough steroids to get them to the point where they were 215 from, I don't know, let's say naturally this theoretical person would have been 185 pounds naturally lean on stage. Get them on steroids, and after a while, they're able to be 215 on stage. That's a nice increase. That's a 30-pound increase in muscle mass. So you take this person, is it possible for that person to put on another 80 pounds beyond that?
With the insulin use, and supposedly Ronnie was a big insulin user and stuff, and they pointed that out on my channel. He passed out. So he almost had a complication driving or something. I don't know, Ron. You know more than me. I'm just the doc that helps people, get around and help clean them up. But it's like probably drug-free, maxed out, genetic gifted guy. He maxes out around his 215. That's incredible. And then you're right. And then you see a 10-year, you just see that movement over the 10-year period where he's packing on almost 100 pounds of pure muscle with anabolic, anogenic steroids. I agree with it. I think you're right. I think probably was drug-free.
Yeah. When I say that, they jump down my throat. They say, you're so naive. You're just kissing his ass. And they say, I have no reason to kiss his ass. If I thought
there's a receptor limit because you hit it and there's that limit. So it's true that the top guys in the world, powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, they're the top naturally too. Everyone, it has to be true, like you said, because they're all using pretty much the same amount of drugs. And then you could keep taking. How many guys have told me over the years? Thousands of guys, Doc. You get to a point where you start doing all these permutations and combinations of all these drug cycles, and you just feel like crap, and you don't get any. You don't get any more benefit because your muscles are maxed. The receptors. That's a whole other scientific discovery, right? The receptor recycling and down regulation, up regulation with antihistamines. When I first started doing all this as the anabolic doc, when I was with you guys, 2009, I didn't know any of that. So I had to learn it all from the streets. And then I've talked to doctors, Dr. Bashane doesn't know about this. And then, Dr. William Kramer is a PhD at the Ohio State. He's a pretty close friend of mine. He's an expert in muscle endocrinology and PhD. He's a sports, very famous guy in the sports.
Oh yeah, I know the name very
sport
well.
physiology. So he knows about the receptor. He's a biochemist. So that's true though. Those receptors, you can have genetics, but you don't have the same genetics. There's different genetic molecular receptors. He's a responder. You know that. Look at you, look at me, look at everyone. This guy, and then that's why the guys, everyone's trying combinations of test, equipoise, trend, orals, insulin, G8, all this kind of stuff, and IGF. And then that's what those gurus do. And I can't stand them. I have to be against them. They're killing people.
Yeah, I know.
But I try to stay correct. What am I going to do? So I have to work in the streets, but in the end, look at the bodies they produce, lean and hard. Ronnie's skin is just, it's great.
I mean, I've heard the phrase, and I believe this: if you took drugs out of bodybuilding, the same guys would be winning.
I agree.
Because the genetics rise to the top in bodybuilding. They always do.
But it's going to be boring, people say, right? I don't agree.
It's an inconvenient truth, as Al Gore would say, because you can't change your genetics. So people, they don't want to believe that there are those rare specimens out there, like a Ronnie. I say this at times, and people think I'm an idiot. I say the genetics of a Ronnie Coleman for building lean muscle mass with that kind of shape are probably about as rare as the amount of men in the world who are going to grow to a height of 6'10" or 11. There's not many people that will ever be that tall. It's very, very rare. So,
and then on top of that, so this is a great discussion. On top of that, which there are men all over like if you go to different countries all over the world, in Africa and Asia, Europe, anywhere, and you line up people in streets and you look like this is what the Russians used to do. Why they used to pick their out. They did that. The Eastern Bloc did that with children. You're a swimmer. You're a weightlifter. You're going to be okay. You know that. And then they gave drugs. And they trained them. So in the end, there's enough guys that are 6'10" in the world, that are then. But will there guys that have the muscle bellies and the genetics? The moons have to line up. Are they going to be willing to train hard? They're going to be some guy. There's natural guys walking around you'll see in Costco and you go, holy shit, man. You want to go up to him and say, dude, I don't want to cause any trouble, but you're a freak because you're probably not on steroids. You're just sitting here putting he's 19, putting the shelves in and his arm is like freaking, and he may or may, this day and age, probably he's already had so much positive feedback that he's probably involved. So who knows what he's in. But back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when it was a little different, there's no social media, guys are walking around. Then are they ready to make that decision to train like a beast, take the steroids, and go with all the lightweight baby? That doesn't exist.
Right. He was a 1 in a million, or 1 in 10 million, maybe.
Oh, it's one. Ronnie Coleman. It's 1 out of 100 million. I mean, 1 out of a million. It's because not just the genes, but the willingness, the discipline to train hard, take the drugs, lightweight. So one of the strongest men in the world that I took care of a bunch of them. He said, I go, how do you lift it? How do you do all? He goes, it's called pain tolerance training. I take my brain. I have a certain set weight I know, and I use this in powerlifting. Of course, the rest, mortals like us, we break. He said, I take my brain first to a place That's the set, right? You see, you visualize it, and all this. You do. We do this, and then my body follows.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that's it.
I had to go back because that whole grocery store story actually happened in my hometown here at was it at Shaw's or Stop and Shop? Stop and Shop. There was a kid in my town. This is years ago. He was probably 17 years old at the time. I think he was a grade ahead of my daughter in high school. And I saw him, and he was stocking shelves or something. I said, "Geez, I said, not to be creepy or anything, kid. I just want to tell you, you should probably compete in bodybuilding, or I don't think Classic had even started yet. No, it hadn't. There was no Classic yet. I said, you should try bodybuilding." He goes, "Bodybuilding, you think? Really? Why?" I said, you're genetically gifted." I could see he had the smock on, but he had a tight t-shirt. I could see just the muscle bellies, the round delts, the arms are round. He had like a waist like a little girl. Everything was just the structure and the muscle bellies. And he started competing like a year and a half later. He won everything he did. He started off in the drug-free organization. Then he went over to the NPC, turned pro in Classic Physique the first year that they had Classic, I believe. And he never used drugs. And I know this because I know his family. I know the kid, and he was very crestfallen after a pro show. I won't say which one, but he came up to me and his parents. They were very upset because they say, "What do I need to do?" I said, "The other guys they're just bigger than you. They're even in Classic there's drug use, obviously." I said, "I'm not going to tell you to use steroids. I would never tell you to do that. I say if you want to stick to your beliefs and your ethics and this and that and stay natural, that's great, but you're going to need a different look. You're going to need to be a little bigger, a little crisper looking if you want to beat these guys that we just saw in the top 5 of this show." And he actually, I think he retired shortly after that at like 22 or 23 years old. He said, "All right, never forget it. Never mind."
What a great story.
Yeah, but totally pure genetic freak. These people are out there. There's not many of them, but they stand out. They look different. They're not like you and me. They're not your average bear, as Dr. Thomas O'Connor would say.
We have to be the average bear on steroids, which is okay.
That's right. We do. Well, Doctor, thank you. Thank you so much. You always allow me to steal your videos. I figured, you're doing a lot of videos on, I want to let people know, Dr. O'Connor does, most of his videos are trying to keep you healthy. So go to the channel, Anabolic Doc. He's trying to help you live long, enjoyable life, whether you use steroids or not. And he's there for the men of the world, particularly because we tend not to be as well taken care of by the medical industry as women, and that's a lot of it's on us. We don't go to the doctor and we don't seek medical treatment when we should a lot of times. But I encourage you guys, please check out the channel Anabolic Doc. At least 1 or 2 great informative videos that will actually help you live longer, feel better, and live your best life, as the young people say. Check out that website, testosteroneology.com. The doctor is available for teleconferencing, which is the only way you're seeing doctors these days anyway. So it doesn't matter if you're in Detroit or Dubai, you can get a consult with a good doctor on testosterone. Take the E off the end and put OLOGY for you spelling challenge folks out there. Strong and healthy. I like it.
And life is good. We're moving forward.
Cool. Appreciate you taking the time, doctor. I know you're super, super busy, even busier in this COVID age than you were before. Yeah.
Digital.
So everybody, thanks so much for watching. Ask the Anabolic Doc. We'll see you next time.